Welcome to Brainstorming. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning dreampunk and deeply weird fantasy author, and yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard, and this is episode 109 of Brainstorming. Now, regular listeners will know that alongside finishing off my next novel, which is with my editor, trying to stay calm, I am calm. Towards the end of last month, I also wrote a short story in response to one of the publishing call-outs that I shared on the show, because I just loved the idea and could not let it slip by. It was from zombiesneedbrains.com, who were asking for creative, inventive stories about were-creatures, basically anything but a werewolf. They'd even suggested were-squirrels and were-octopuses in their call-out, so they were completely up for being all-out wacky. Right up my street. However, I am gutted to reveal that my story did not make the cut. I bumped into some other writers on social media who had also submitted and didn't make the cut. And one of them, who'd submitted right up close to the deadline of 31st of May, said his story showed as being 311th in the queue to be reviewed. I also seem to remember that the publisher already had about 8 or so authors already lined up for their stories to be included in the new anthology before they even did the call out. So they were probably only looking for, 6 stories, possibly? Their preferred length was around 6,000 words, so a meteor length. And you couldn't really have much more than that. Much more than 6 more stories before you start looking at a serious tome. So I think we both felt a bit reassured and maybe let off the hook slightly by the chances of acceptance being something like less than 2%. But yeah, I'm still gutted. I would have loved to be in that anthology, and the first book in the series was so good. Even so, I still have a story that I wouldn't otherwise have written, and you never know, there may be another call out in future, hopefully in the near future, that it might be perfectly suited for. And in fact, I'm not completely sure, but I may have found this. So if you're in the same position as I am, if you too wrote a story for Where To and got rejected, I may have another call out that it could potentially fit. Hang in there, and I'll announce this in my usual slot for publishing call-outs towards the end of today's show. But in the meantime, part of what I liked about Zombies Need Brains, apart from the title, was they put out a video on Blue Sky a few weeks before the deadline, giving feedback, sort of general feedback about the types of stories they'd received so far and their advice about what works, what doesn't work. I really liked that. Anything you can get straight from the publisher's mouths about what they're really looking for, and especially what doesn't work, because sometimes you have to read between the lines when you read the submission guidelines to really get to detail like that. This kind of thing is just gold dust, quite frankly. So I'm going to share with you now the main points that I jotted down when I listened to their video, because what they said rung true to me, and I think these guidelines probably apply right across the board. The video was a conversation between 2 editors for this call out. In fact, one of them was Joshua Palmatier himself, who is the owner of Zombies Need Brains LLC. I just love that that is a company. Okay, so a lot of the stories they'd received were good for the first third, then petered out, and not a lot happened. I've always thought that writing an opening, a good opening to a story and setting up the suspense is the easier part, which is quicker to learn to do well. It's developing a story and then tying things off in a satisfying yet surprising way that I think takes more time and practice to get to grips with. So I wasn't really surprised by this. And of course, the more stories we write, the better we get at this and all aspects of writing. Another thing the editors noticed was a lot of stories that had clearly been written before this call out, where the writer had obviously just tweaked the story for this purpose. And one major symptom, if you like, of this was the arbitrariness of the were-creature. It wasn't really necessary for that story. And you could imagine the same story unfolding without need of that were-creature being part of it. They received a lot of discovery tales, that is, a character who is discovering that he or she or it is a were-creature, and the experience of that, just kind of describing that happening and the horror of it as it unfolds. But that alone isn't a story. I agreed with them on this. This is not enough to make a story. There needs to be a problem that they solve, something they overcome, something that matters and that incites a change, something that's wound into the whole situation, preferably, of being a were-creature. Another kind of story they received, and which didn't really work for them, was one that just ends with a fight. They emphasised that a fight is not a story conclusion in and of itself, and to be worth reading or watching, a fight has to be integral to the story and to achieve something. The protagonist might simply figure out something or discover a surprising truth that affects them either during the fight or as a consequence of it. But there has to be an integral reason why these things happen in a story. And of course, the risk of a fight, if it's not really needed in order to resolve something or change something, is that it puts a halt on the actual storyline itself. So your reader will be potentially drumming their fingers, waiting for the fight to end, if it's only there for a spectacle. So there you have it. Advice straight from the publisher. I couldn't find the video on YouTube, but if you go to Blue Sky and find Joshua Palmatier, you may have to scroll a little bit to find the video, but it is there. Up next, I have some amazing short fiction to share with you from my talented listeners based on prompts from the show. Harold Loomis, who sometimes calls himself HL, responded to a prompt on episode 107, which was, "The pointed headless horseman was stuck in a portal with the tranquil game developer." Bizarre indeed. Harold wrote, "The headless horseman's sword was mid-arc, his horse mid-gallop, when a stark white arch appeared directly in front of the headless rider. He pulled hard on the reins. The black as night horse tried not to go, but slid on the path through the portal. The blinding whiteness of the room subsided to reveal a small woman, short in stature, holding an iPad. Her nose ring jingled and blue hair bounced as she gave a speech she had given many times before. The monotone staleness of the delivery gave away the fact that she didn't care what was happening. Welcome to the portal. This is a video game halfway point between myth, fiction and imagination where we, the game developers, get motivations behind characters to provide a better gaming experience. The woman gave an exasperated sigh. Why do you do what you do? The headless horseman was overwhelmed. His horse stamped and snorted. He raised his sword and swiped through the neck of the woman, hoping to be rid of her and get out of this place. The pixels of the hologram shifted, but left the woman more incensed. "Oh, I'm not really there with you," she said with contempt. Her iPad buzzed and emitted a translation taken from the horseman. "Who dares imprison me?" The woman was already tired of this. A press of a button and the floor opens to drop the horse and horseman back to where they came. "As if," the woman said. I love the weird atmosphere here and how you've thrown together both fairy tale imagery with modern technology at the same time. It really does make sense of this exquisite corpse. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Harold. Paul Macmillan wrote a story based on the egotistical fate. Most fates worked quietly. The tragic fate broke hearts and never took credit. The twice-lived fate gave people second chances and rarely stuck around to see what happened. The humble fate spent centuries nudging lives in small directions and seemed perfectly happy being forgotten. The egotistical fate, however, was unbearable. Every time something happened, he wanted credit for it. When a fisherman caught a record-breaking trout, "You're welcome." When a king won a war, "Couldn't have done it without me." When a baker finally perfected her pie crust after 20 years, the crust arrived with a tiny note baked inside, "Masterfully arranged by fate." One day, the other fates grew tired of it. "Fine," said the humble fate. "If you're so important, take a week off." The egotistical fate agreed. He expected civilization to collapse by Tuesday. Instead, everything kept happening. People fell in love, storms rolled in, countries still argued, and children were born. After a week he returned, visibly shaken. "What happened?" he asked. The tragic fate shrugged. "The usual." The egotistical fate never fully recovered from learning the universe could function without an audience. Though, to be fair, he still claimed responsibility for discovering that. This is so clever. It feels like a lot is packed into this. And you've really got me thinking about the concept of fate, which maybe we don't think about as much as they did in Greek times, but, the ancient Greeks and these big concepts they had. But that's really got me thinking. Thank you, Paul, for your story. You can find Paul Macmillan on Instagram as Bookmarks Love and Law or on X as Bookmarks L&L. Mark West wrote about the bloodthirsty circle. The bloodthirsty circle lived in a pleasant meadow with the other shapes. Nobody knew why he was bloodthirsty. He had never actually tasted blood. In fact, he fainted during a paper cut. Still, every morning he announced, "Today I shall know violence." The anxious triangle immediately began worrying. Against whom? "I haven't decided." The magnanimous square offered everyone biscuits. The bureaucratic rectangle proposed a committee. The circle spent most of his afternoons making dramatic speeches about conquest before becoming distracted by a deeply mysterious parallelogram. This continued for years. Then one day, a drop of blood appeared on a rose bush. The circle stared at it. At last, his destiny, his purpose, his reason for being. He approached slowly. The other shapes gathered around. The circle touched the blood, then licked it. Everyone held their breath. "Well?" asked Triangle. The circle considered. "It's horrible." "And?" "I appear to have built my personality around a misunderstanding." Silence fell. After a long pause, Square offered him a biscuit. The circle accepted. From then on, he became known not as the bloodthirsty circle, but as the circle of unrealistic expectations. The pedantic hexagon was unbearable about the whole affair. "This sort of thing never happens to numbers," he said. "Can numbers taste blood?" asked the square. "Unlikely," said hexagon. "They know their limitations." Nobody knew what he meant. Even hexagon seemed uncertain by the end of the sentence. Still, he looked very pleased with himself, and the meadow carried on as before, although nobody ever did quite understand that mysterious parallelogram. This is bizarre. It's very clever, this humour on the surface of things, but there's definitely something darker lurking underneath all of this. I find it slightly disturbing. For example, imagine if these weren't literal shapes and the shapes were nicknames for people. I mean, you could tip this over into horror, possibly, with just a little nudge, right? Thank you for your mysterious story, Mark. You can find Mark West on X as 2112 Westy. Things are about to get darker. Paul Monteith wrote The Bloodthirsty Circle and The Broken Wallaby, which of course came in the same Exquisite Corpse. Every month, Blood Moon Tavern hosted the Vampire Bite Night, where costumed Vlads and DeVilles, coven deep, drank Bloody Marys, served in IV blood bags. In a corner of the tavern, a broken wallaby, bound in garlic-soaked bandages, sat next to a circle as dark as a crypt. A DeVille approached the wallaby. "That's the darkest circle I've ever seen," she said. "The holy symbols circling the disc are like those used to confine creatures of the night." "Very observant," replied the wallaby. "They keep the darkness inside the circle." "Why keep it contained?" "Come closer." The vampiress leaned in and heard fluttering. Bats crowded her thoughts, a flock so thick around her face that she gasped for air and felt lightheaded. Behind the fluttering, a chorus of unintelligible growls and eerie howls left her confused and dizzy, and she stumbled toward the black circle. In the circle's inky gloom, charcoal-coloured figures moved. One of the figures stood at the circle's surface. Its red eyes pierced her to the marrow, and where she imagined its mouth to be were two needle-like fangs. Prickly fear crept over her scalp. The sensation washed over her face and tingled down her spine. Without thinking, she bared her neck, enjoying the ecstasy as her skin was pierced. The wallaby gave the DeVille a gentle push, and she disappeared into the circle, a personal blood bag for the circle's thirsty inhabitants. "That's one dark circle," said a bite night reveller. "Come closer," said the wallaby. Whoa. See, this is weird. There was this strong flavour of humour at the beginning, but then the darkness spreads like spilled ink. Proof that you can absolutely blend humour with horror in the right places and in an intriguing way. Thank you, Paul. You can find Paul Monteith on Blue Sky as Quantum Fairy, and his link tree is linktr.ee/mostlypaul. Right, it is time to find new blends of humour and darkness and countless other things through the power of randomness as we reach into the socks. of destiny. That's right, Exquisite Corpse mixes your words and phrases into a sentence that goes describing word noun, action, describing word noun. I'll play 3 rounds to create 3 very weird sentences, exploring the story possibilities they suggest along the way. Next, I'll roll a 12-sided dice to see what else might be going on. Then it'll be over to you. And my voice gets deeper sometimes. Oh my goodness. Right, let's start. The first word is from Paul Thomas. Sheepish. Okay, what or who was sheepish? I'm going to dig down deep into these socks. What have we got? This one is from Paul Benfield. Mosaic. It makes me think it's a mosaic of sheep. That would be weird. Okay, I'm just going to keep going. Try not to think too much about it. We have an action from, who's this? This is Paul Monteith, the Quantum Fairy on Blue Sky. Snatched. Not sure what we're going to do with that, but hey, never do at this point. Next word is from, the person who calls themselves me, which is not me, but it's me. Okay? Moist, because everybody loves that word, right? Okay, finally, the last word is from, Paul Thomas again. Artifact. Oh no. A moist artifact. Okay, so the entire Exquisite Corpse is the sheepish mosaic snatched the moist artifact. Okay, so a mosaic is like pieces put together to create a beautiful image, kind of refracted. So how could it snatch anything? We'd have to interpret this as a person, someone's personality or experiences or ways of thinking. If they have, say, multiple personalities. Gosh, that's making me think of a book I read that was incredible. Frances Hardinge, A Skinful of Shadows. If you like weird and kind of spooky, if you like extremely weird, then I would highly recommend A Skinful of Shadows. Or Frances Hardinge in general is incredible. They're like these ghosts that are inside people, and you end up with collections of them. So those people, in a way, are a sort of mosaic. But anyway, what can we do with the sheepish mosaic snatched the moist artifact? Well, moist makes something difficult to snatch. What is this artifact? Something from an old fountain? A faucet or outlet, or just a piece of the fountain that mysteriously always remains wet. I'm getting museum feelings. I went to London yesterday, just popped up to see family, and you get museum feelings when you go to London, even if you don't visit a museum. But no, this Exquisite Corpse is definitely giving me museum feelings. It's like 2 artifacts or exhibits communicating with each other in some way. A mosaic that keeps scattering its pieces, and a fountain or a piece of an ancient Grecian fountain that is always dripping. It's kind of creepy. I'm not sure about the snatched bit in the middle, but the mosaic idea is making me think of things or entities that are made up of many parts and are rearranging themselves turning into other things, breaking apart and then combining, moving around when people aren't looking, which is, I quite like that. So it feels like a setting idea. It feels like part of an idea. I'm going to leave it at that for now and try for a second Exquisite Corpse. So our first word is from Sean, also known as Blue Wizard Facts. Weird. Well, we like weird, so that's a good solid word to begin with. Okay, next word is from Anonymous. Lollipop woman. Okay, I realised from conversations, very strange conversations with people in other countries, like Canada, for example, that other countries besides the UK may not have this phrase, lollipop woman or lollipop man. It's traffic guards, traffic woman, traffic warden. So someone who holds up a sign that kind of looks like a lollipop to stop the cars to let the kids cross. Well, what happens? This is from Alessandro Bozzo. Typed a manuscript for. Okay. Interesting. We have a writerly lollipop woman. Next word is from Avery. Welcome to the game, Avery. Mangled. Ooh. Final word is from Paul Monteith. Black shuck. So this is a ghostly black dog, and yes, I had to look it up, which is said to roam the coastline and countryside of East Anglia. So this is very specific. Interesting, because lollipop woman is a British phrase, and this is something that is local to Britain, specific to East Anglia. So altogether we have the weird lollipop woman typed a manuscript for, the mangled black shark. Oh my goodness, a mangled ghost. Good grief, I think I'm going to need some green tea though, because this has been brewing for a while. So let's give this a stir. Right. So let me just read that again. The weird lollipop woman typed a manuscript for the mangled black shark or ghost dog. There's a lot going on here. We have a lollipop lady helping the kids across the road, to and from school. Seems a very cheerful and light-hearted kind of role. But she is secretly typing a manuscript for a mangled ghost dog. Oh no! So she's a ghost writer for starters, but a ghost writer for a ghost. Do you know what? I have read a really good collection of short stories where this idea was used and played out really, really well. J.T. Croft, his book Midnight's Treasury, which had a story in it with, yes, it was someone who was a ghost writer for a ghost. And it was very funny, light-hearted, and very clever. So check it out. I don't know why I've got so many book recommendations today. It just seems to be the way things are playing out. But here, returning to the Exquisite Corpse, the weird lollipop woman typed a manuscript for the mangled black shark. So maybe she's researching the black shark? local myths and fairy tales are what she's into, and obviously she lives in East Anglia. Or maybe she just likes walking along the coastline of an evening because that's where she lives. And she feels herself being watched, a pair of eyes glinting in the dark. A dog, not just any dog, mangled, horribly injured from a fight, but beyond saving. Already dead, a ghost dog. Is she going to help the dog by telling its story, if it can find a way to communicate it to her? Or I suppose a more dark version of the story, or perhaps this is necessary, that it possesses her and she ends up writing its story. Possibly there's going to be a wider story around this. Its owner was murdered, and that's how it ended up being killed as well. It was trying to defend its owner. But now it haunts the coastline of East Anglia, desperate for the truth to come out. So while this lollipop woman is cheerful during the day, during her duties, by night she's possessed by a black dog whose last minutes play out in her mind over and over again, this horrific scene, until she has to write it down. But then, can she prove it? Does it become her responsibility to prove this murder? And so she becomes involved in investigating what was a cold case. Interesting. That could work. Okay, moving on to our third and final exquisite corpse of the day. Our first word is from Alessandro Bozzo. Neat. Okay, let's find a noun that is neat. This is from Wendy. Snake oil salesman. I imagine them having a neat suit, so that would kind of work. Let's see. Our action is from Sean, also known as Blue Wizard Fax. Cuddled with. Not necessarily romance, people. Next word is from Anonymous. Sploshing. Oh, that's weird. We had a moist word earlier. That's weird. Okay. Final word to complete the exquisite corpse is from Sean, also known as Blue Wizard Fax. Swamp monster. Well, I guess that could splosh. Okay, altogether we have the neat snake oil salesman cuddled with the sploshing swamp monster. Why? I feel like I'm asking, well, set aside, why did the chicken cross the road? For why did the neat snake oil salesman cuddle with the sploshing swamp monster? Or maybe he didn't have a choice. He's venturing into swamplands now because he hasn't had much luck going door to door in good old ordinary suburbia. He's decided to step further afield. Maybe he's just got fed up, decided to clamber through a broken fence to have his sandwich. Kind of squashed in his suitcase by now, but even so, he's going to have his lunch in a beautiful looking meadow, which technically belongs to this homeowner here. But hey, she just slammed the door in his face. And he's getting really fed up now with everyone's attitude on this street. He's only trying to make a living. So what if his lotions and creams don't do what they say they'll do? They're harmless moisturizers after all, and he's just trying to make a living. But the moment he steps through that broken fence, the gorgeous meadow transforms into a swampland. Everything he saw a moment ago disappears. including his own shoe, which gets sucked into the slimy, sticky mud. He yelps, pulls out his foot, now only a socked foot, and tries to steady himself against the fence, which is no longer there. Humid, oppressive heat makes the sweat creep from his pores, so that his neat shirt clings to his back and arms. And there's a horrible splosh in the bog as something long and fleshy coils around his ankle and yanks hard. And that may be why, or perhaps more how, the neat snake oil salesman cuddled with the sploshing swamp monster. But what happens next? Does he survive? Do we want him to survive? Is he just a salesman? Who is this woman who lives in a house that has a broken fence with a portal in it? Well, perhaps we'll leave that to the dice, if that's the one that I choose to take a little bit further. Looking over the 3 exquisite corpses that have come up today, we have artefacts shifting around in a museum, including part of a fountain that still drips. That last one with the snake oil salesman stepping from rural suburbs into an infested swamp. But the middle one, the one about the weird lollipop woman who typed a manuscript for the mangled black shuck or ghost dog, seems to have the most potential to me. It does feel like it could be a whodunit, but then again, if this lollipop woman is to become an unintentional investigator, because she's not a professional and because her life will be in danger if she investigates this murder, or so I reckon, then I think this would fall under the genre of thriller, supernatural thriller. Not something I would feel confident about writing in book-length form because I don't tend to read thrillers, so I'm not aware of all the expectations a reader would have, all the tropes that they'd be looking for. But this is, again, the beauty of exploring something as a short story. In short stories, you can shrug off the usual expectations and take something into a very different place, which is what I will do now using the 12-sided dice. Check the show notes if you'd like to see the full list of categories. 11. A ghost? What? But we already know that it's a ghost. The lollipop lady becomes a ghost writer for a ghost, writing down its grisly story. So what could this suggestion mean? That there's a threat of her becoming a ghost in all of this? That while she becomes fascinated by the sensation that takes over her, this terrifying yet thrilling feeling of a dog's mind and memories entering her own mind, so that every night she almost begins to crave opening up her laptop and just typing, writing out these images as they come to her. And some of it may be joyful images of running through fields, jumping for a ball or a stick, chasing a squirrel, eating a treat. And she begins to realise over time that her body, her human body, is fading. The more time she spends indulging in these dog memories, which every now and then show her a flash of horrific imagery of a knife raised against his owner, his alpha, of digging his teeth into the intruder's leg, and then of the pain that screams through his muscles as he is then attacked. The more time and thought space, if I can call it that the woman gives this spirit of this brave dog, the more her own life fades away. How long before she turns into a ghost herself? Or can she find a way to stop it? If she can just see the murderer's face through the dog's memory, if she can push him to get to that part of the memory, the most painful part, the part he always avoids, then she'll know who it is. And then maybe this will stop. Maybe then the ghost dog will be at rest, knowing that someone else has heard or watched his story. But then what? Who would believe her? If she went to the police with this information, I don't suppose it would be treated as information, but as hallucination. And she might be forever haunted by this knowledge, this person's face. But then maybe that's better than being forever haunted by this dog and possibly losing her own realness in the process. Ooh, I was thinking as well, another possibility that the category of ghost could suggest in all of this. What if there's another ghost in the story? What if she sees the murderer's face in the dog's memory and then she recognises him as her next door neighbour who died several years ago before the dog's death and the dog's owner dying? What could that mean? If actually the murderer was a ghost? This could turn into a very paranormal driven story. Can a ghost kill you? What does that mean? I like the idea of starting out with something that just seems utterly impossible. Of course I do. But something that you can't put together. This is such a discovery writer thing. And then if you start writing something that is mysterious to you, then this will surely come through. The whole feeling of the piece will just come through your writing. Plus, it's more fun that way, I reckon. One final possibility I'm thinking of with Ghost is the ultimate twist that the lollipop woman herself is in fact a ghost after all, and she didn't even know it. Major twist at the end. In fact, imagine how she's been turning up to her job every day, stepping out into the road with her lollipop sign and only children acknowledging her, but looking at her strangely, with parents not even glancing at her, treating her like she doesn't exist because they can't see her. Then right near the end, she goes back out to do her job for the after-school run, and she finally notices what she's ignored all along, perhaps with just the power of denial, the walk, don't walk lights that the children and parents have been using anyway. And that is how this dog, the black shuck, has been able to enter her mind in the first place, because she too has been a ghost for some time. Oh, weird. Kind of spooky. I mean, I'll roll the dice again, but there's a lot going on here already. So maybe this second roll can be just for a detail. Just to throw in one last little detail to enrich the story world or the character or what happens. Here goes. 6. A monster or creature? What's going on? There's already a monster of sorts in this. I feel like the dice keeps pointing back to the elements or themes that are already there, as if to suggest that we should focus on those elements and make more of them. Well, maybe that's a good idea with this particular story, as it already has quite a lot going on that works with urban fantasy, urban paranormal thriller type fantasy. But if we take this as less as a gentle nudge to keep going along the monstrous lines of thought, this suggestion of monster or creature makes me think of the murderer. Who is he, after all? What if the quiet neighbour who supposedly died several years ago and before this grisly murder of a man and his dog, what if he isn't actually dead? What if he disappeared and was presumed dead? As the lollipop woman discovers when she starts digging into the newspaper articles about him online and just generally trying to piece together the facts with the apparently impossible. And what if, when she tracks him down, he turns out to be not quite human? That is quite a lot of paranormal elements to chuck into the cooking pot of this story. Too much? I don't know. Can it ever be too much? Well, whether you decide to take on the same themes or ideas that the dice has suggested, I would still very much like to hear what you make of the black shuck or ghost dog, and possibly even why, if you can work it out, the weird lollipop woman typed a manuscript for the mangled black shuck. Or you might prefer to explore how the neat snake oil salesman cuddled with the sploshing swamp monster. Not just how, maybe why. Yeah? You know what to do. Hit the submit button at annatizard.com with maximum 250 words, whether that's a whole micro story, a scene, or a poem. Remember, to be included in the next show, I'll need to receive your submission by the end of day next Friday. That is just 1 week after the release of this show. Send in something later and I'll just include it in the show after that. But how about some publishing opportunities while we're at it? Because once you get writing, it might inspire you to expand and develop what you've begun into something slightly longer. Exquisite Undead are looking for stories about vampires, whether that's traditional blood-drinking vampires, undead horrors, or even psychic vampires, and they are open to any genre as well as genre blending. They accept short stories up to 7,000 words, as well as poetry and flash fiction. I realise I've been sharing quite a lot of call-outs lately that tend to focus on longer stories, so here's one for the flash fiction fiends. They pay $65 for short stories, no matter the length, and $30 for poetry or flash fiction, which for them is anything up to 1,500 words. They are open to submissions until 1st of September, and you can find out more at exquisite-undead.card.co, and they've spelled card C-A-R-R-D. Now, the call-out I mentioned in the introduction as being a potential for those, like me, who have a were-creature story going spare, is from Philly Publishing for their Monstrously Misguided anthology. The deadline is tight, people, 1st of July, but they're looking for stories from 1,500 words up to a maximum of 6,000 words. Well, my were story is nearly 7,000, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of cutting back. They are looking for original stories that reinvent, subvert, or completely upend traditional ideas of monsters. Think unexpected behaviour, strange evolutionary paths, or creatures trying poorly to adapt to modern life. So I'm not completely sure this would be a perfect fit for a were-creature story, but it could be. If you've written one, have a think about the themes it addresses and what happens in it. And if you haven't, maybe try writing one based on a mangled black shuck or a sploshing swamp monster. For more information, go to phillybooks.com And Philly is an Irish word, so it is spelt Filidh. So that's phillybooks.com. As usual, I don't have any personal experience of these publishers. I've just come across the details that I've just shared with you in the wilds of the internet. Whoever you choose to submit to, always run a check on Google for reviews and comments and read the terms and conditions of publishing to ensure they suit you. And don't forget to let me know the moment you have an Exquisite Corpse inspired story or poem published anywhere, so I can share this on Brainstorming Emporium and give you an extra shout out so other listeners and folks online can more easily find you and your story. Until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstorming. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, at annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get Volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.